Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, the Siberian Elm forests do need another trim already. The Japanese beetles have arrived in Minnesota. It seems a little late this year, but they've come. And the trees they love the most of all my trees in my garden is the Siberian elms. So they don't bother the Marquette grape anymore because remember I took the grape out of the ground and we have a bonsai in the works with that tree. And we'll give you an update on that tree on this show's update. But we have our Siberian elm that got a little damage. One or two of them more than the other, but we have three forests that we're just going to tidy up a little bit because it's looking super nice and thick and healthy, and we want to continue to grow and chop and promote that thickening of the trunk in there. So I believe you're looking at the front of this forest right here. This is not a bad looking front either. This just invites you a little bit more. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 trees in this forest, and so we're going to go ahead and do a little trimming here. So right off the get-go, I can see this tree right here is growing so much in that it's blocking the view a little bit. We're just going to cut this one a little bit shorter here. We'll cut this one shorter here. And we're just going to go down to that 4, 6, maybe 8 in some cases leaves and just let it grow all over again. So there's that right tree right there. Now it's got 2 branches real close to each other right here, so we're going to go ahead and cut this one off. And then we're going to leave that right there. There's one tree. This bottom one's growing a little bit too close to the back one, so there we have it. So for right now, there's tree number 1. Let's go to its opposite counterpart there on the left-hand side, and that one's kind of wild and scriggly, huh? We've got some interesting movement here. We had a big chop over here, and it's responded nicely with 2 new leaf growths over here, but this is kind of in our face. Let's just cut that here. The next one is back way over here. It's going into the tree behind it. We'll shorten this guy right here. We'll shorten this guy right here. And we'll shorten this guy right here. And that's that whole tree. Not a whole lot to do to that tree, but it's given some room for more growth. Okay? Let's go ahead and do this big one right up there in the front right. So we've got this one splitting way up high, but that's too high. There's another branch growing right below here. We'll cut it right there. And then this is from that same tree. We got a new branch going at you. We'll cut it there. This is from the same tree. We'll cut it there. And there's also a branch way back here. We're going to cut it way short. And let's take a look at that one. Yeah, there's one more branch. Do you see that? Look at this guy way over here. It cuts all the way across to the backside over here. We're going to cut to a upward facing leaf. And hopefully it grows more up now instead of into the forest. And that one still cuts over really crazy right here. So you know what? We're going to cut this whole thing right off. We'll let these 3-4 branches take over that tree. That's just fine for right now. And if you can see, there's a leaf coming from this tree way in here. I'm just going to cut that off right now. It's kind of a weak little branch in the middle of this tree. Now let's go to this one up here on your left and my right. And I think we're just going to go ahead and shorten it on down. That's the last cut right there. We'll cut the new cut to right here, and we'll cut this new cut right there. That's all there is to that tree, so we'll just leave that growing. Let's go back to this tree over here. It's kind of harder to see. This one's tall enough where it blocks most of it, but there it is from the back view. And if we just go ahead and do our typical shortening on down and seeing where it's going to ramify next. Directional pruning so that leaf grows the direction I want it to grow in next. There we go. That one's all pruned up. We'll leave that one right there. This back one hardly has any growth on it. It's because it's probably shaded out most of the time. But there is still 1, 2, 3 branches. We'll just let it go to there and see what happens with that one. This one's long before the branches and before the subdivision, but if I cut it right there, it divides more that way to your right and my left. We'll cut that shorter there, cut that shorter there and there. And this back one sticks out way too far. There's 3 different divisions. We'll cut it back to the first division. And there we go. That one's taken care of. So now we just have these 2 long ones in the back. So if I just go ahead, yeah, and there's 1 long branch over here on that tree still. Let's just cut it way back to there. So that one's got several branches. Actually, back here in the back, there's 3 branches growing there. Can we see that? 3 branches growing in the same spot. Let's cut it down to 2 right now. And then we'll get rid of some more of this dead nub. And then we have a split to 2 there, and we'll see how that grows over time. This one's going a really interesting direction. We'll push it back that way a little bit. Cut this one down to here. Cut this one down to size over there. And there we have Siberian Forest number 1, trimmed up and ready for some growth. Siberian Elm Forest number 2. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 more trees. This cute little one back here, barely getting any sun, but still doing just fine. Now this one is totally out of hand, but let's get to that one later. Let's cut up this one right here first. There's a big branch going towards the back here. I'm just going to cut really short. We're going to cut this one off here. And there's that first tree cut up to size a little bit. Then we'll go out to this right side. So your left, my right, right down here. We'll cut this one much shorter because it's kind of facing a weird direction. Cut this one shorter. This one at the bifurcation there where it splits into 2. Much shorter. Inside, we'll almost cut that one. You know what? We're going to cut that one off. And a little shorter. And a little shorter. So that's that tree. And let's go right back to that small skinny one. Let's just get rid of that little bitty tip right there. There we go. And we're going to leave the rest of that one to grow, I think. I can cut an inside branch right here. And that one's still surviving. So there we go. Boom, boom, boom. Let's keep going around the backside to that squiggly tree in the back. So if you can see, there's some growth towards the front. Might get in the way someday. This is super tall. We'll just cut it back. This one's super tall. We'll cut it way back. And we'll trim this one right here. And there's that back one. Let's see if there's any branches we just don't want. I think we're still okay with that one. Yeah, we're going to let that one go. So 1, 2, 3, 4 trees done. Let's keep going on the back one there. That back tree has a branch that's growing right out at you. We'll just make it a lot shorter for right now. It splits way up here, but we're going to go right to there, to this new growth right here. You might not be able to see. There it is, right there, new growth. This is kind of long and to the side. We'll get that one down to about there. And that one's all cut out. Alright, now we're going to go to this back one right here. Again, this piece is growing towards the front at us a little bit. We'll grow so it's a leaf maybe growing more up. We'll make it a little shorter. We'll go even shorter to that new growth there. We got that side cut off and that side cut off. Super quick with these chops on this tree. I think now we're at this front one. We'll do that last though. Let's go back to this next one here. It's got some interesting growth right here. Growing real crooked and weird. We're going to cut that chunk off right there. And we'll just cut this one to an upward facing leaf. Get this one shorter. Upward facing leaf. Shorter. And now we're done with that one. And we have our last one over here. We're going to cut it shorter. We're going to cut it shorter. And shorter. The theme of the day. And that leaves the big squirrely one. That one's just kind of wild. It's got a branch growing way back here. It'd be better if it was in the front, but it's not. There's a nice leaf, big one growing back here. We don't get any forward growth till here, so we'll at least cut it off right there. And then we have some growth that's going right there. We'll do that for now and then shorten this down to this nub right there and hope we get some back budding in here somewhere, because more of the oxen now will be sent back down there. So that one's a scraggly looking forest, but it's trimmed. We have a haircut. Tree number 2, I should say forest number 2. Let's get the third one. And forest planting number 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trees on this one. We've got some weeds. Oh, is that a tree? I don't know if that one's a tree right there. Might be a... The leaves look the same. That could be a sucker from an old... Yeah, it looks like an old stump right there. This one was a tree, but that would be 6. 2, 4, 6, and that would be an even planting. And I'm sure I went with an odd planting. But we'll go ahead and keep that in there and see if that takes off and grows. Now I noticed on this middle one right in here, I don't know if you can see deep in there, but there's a real tough scar on that tree. That tree was demolished by something. It's like something hit it. It's peeling back in a really tough shape. I have no idea what could have created that. So there's a great big scar right here. Now that is in the back of this design, but I don't know if that tree will last very long. Let's go ahead and start on your right and my left with this great big one here. There we go, upward facing leaf way down there. Got this one down here that almost could be cut off. I think I will. Cut this here to an upward facing leaf. Short and short. And this one right here, let's go back to the right. And there's that tree right there. There's some little leaf growths in here. We'll just see what stays alive here. Actually, I'll just peel that one off. There we go. Got a weed right here. Let's do the big one right there. Got some growth in the back. I'll trim off a little bit. We'll make this a little bit shorter. We'll go shorter and shorter, shorter and shorter. And there's a big branch coming out your way. Let's just get that shorter for right now. I still think we can cut this one back to one more. And this one as well. My scissors isn't quite getting that. There we go. So there's the middle one, or one of the middle ones. Here's the other middle one. Cutting all these shorter. Making sure the leaves face in the direction I'd like it to grow. And again, we have a really interesting rough bark back here. We'll see what happens with that. See how long this one stays viable. Then we get this big one right here. Go right back here and cut it a little bit shorter with a nice growth back there. We'll trim that up. We'll trim that up. Trim that up. Trim that up. That leaves the long one back here with all kinds of weird dangly leaves. We'll cut off this a little bit shorter, as with all the other trees. And this one's growing down. Just cut that one right off. And then we have these two suckers back here that we'll hope will just continue to grow and form a new tree to maybe take over for this if it doesn't survive. Alright, we have a semi-conical shape tree here growing. We'll put that one back on the bench. My update for today is the Marquette grapevine. So we took this out of the ground this spring because it wasn't going to do anything in the ground, and the Japanese beetles were loving it too much. When I brought it over today, I had noticed 3 Japanese beetles on this leaf right there, and this leaf right here has all kinds of holes, and it is already a done deal. So the Japanese beetles are over in that area, which means I might move this to a different spot. Because the way I understand the Japanese beetles, they hang around an area where the smells and the pheromones and stuff just keep them in that area. So I'm going to try to move it like I moved my Siberian elms. I just want this to be in full sun because grapes like full sun and like it really hot, and they really push their fruit towards the latter part of the year, and that's where you get a lot of that really luscious grape juice out of them. So this one initially grew some branches right here, so this is the proposed new front, and this branch grew from right underneath here. So as you can see from this side of the tree, this is almost like dead wood right here. There's no bark even on it, but this still grew. Grapes look completely dead every year, and then they survive. You can see a little nub right here. We'll clean up that nub right here. This was one of the main stalks, and this was another stalk. There was another stalk down here. We'll trim that up and put it below the soil here in the next planting. And we'll clean this up right here a little bit for this new branch, because this new branch will survive. And as you can see, if you can see, I hope you can, is right here, this is a new branch right here on this grapevine. So it's splitting up here nice, and it's got a nice division here, so we've got some ramification. When I was working with the MBS members at the workshop, one of the members was telling me that there's a guy that showed a grape at one of the national shows. One of the shows this year, they had a grape bonsai, and there were grapes on it. So cool. Someday this might have grapes. I don't expect grapes on this guy until probably 2024. So we got it to grow back this year. Next year's a maybe, but that third year or the next year, that'll be 2 full years from when I transplanted, we might see some of the early signs of grapes. Now, what I was told by this gentleman at our workshop, he said that this guy who's been growing some grapes as bonsai says that as soon as these little guys right here, these tentacles that are reaching out to grab something, if they reach out and grab something and hold on to something, then they just take off and run. And that's why I think you see, when you see on a grape vineyard, you see the grapevines growing real short and stout, and then they all grow to the left and right. They hit those stake marks, they hit the wire marks that they have, and that's how I planted mine. They hit those wire marks, they wrap themselves around, and then they just go like crazy. So, we're going to prune this guy for the first time. So, we have a branch that's now starting to wobble a little bit with the wind. We've had really gusty conditions, and I don't want this to break off. So I don't want this to be heavy. And this is also getting close to some other things on my benches and the bench itself, where it could connect to the bench and then want to go ahead and take off and run. So here's a really nice division right here. This is turning into a branch because there's more leaves back here, or one of these will be a branch. This is also a branch going back in this way. I'm going to cut this thing right here. And there we go. So now this isn't so topsy-mopsy, this isn't so top-heavy, this isn't going to be blown over by the wind that I can tell, and it already has some beautiful vine-like movement. If this thickens up as a trunk, it's already curving around a little bit, and we'll see what these other branches do. Now I also have a secondary or a third branch going right in the middle here, which means I could cut this whole branch off right here, and we can make it even shorter and stouter. But we're just going to leave all of these branches here for the best chance for this to survive and to grow lots of grapes maybe next year, and it'll be kind of fun. So we're going to trim this one down just a little bit again too. We don't want the wind to take this one, or don't want this one to reach out. And it has a nice subdivision right here. So I'm going to cut this one right here and let this one see if it continues to push out, or the little bud right in the middle there. And then we're going to cut this one not quite as low. There's a couple of buds right here, and there's a bud right here. Might continue that growth. So I think we're good. I'm going to cut this inside branch right off, this little leaf. I'm going to cut this inside leaf off right here. And this is now set up to do some really fun things, I think. This will be a fun tree next year. I can't wait to see what this thing does next year. So the leaves are big. It's a grapevine. It's a Marquette grape, engineered by the University of Minnesota to be cold hardy in Minnesota. So this can stay outside this winter if I wanted to, but boy, I don't want any critter chops on this one. So if I have room, I might put this in my cold frame. And so there is the Marquette grape update. There's the tree as we see it right now. Pretty fun. I am so happy that this took off right here, kind of at the top of the tree. So we'll clean off this nub a little bit, we'll clean off this nub a little bit, and we'll be in good shape with this tree in the coming years. With that, that's going to wrap up another one. Thank you so much for hanging out. I do appreciate it. Take care of you, take care of your bonsai, and we'll catch you very, very soon.